Hi, my name's Steve Appel, and welcome to another edition of Work Comp Matters. Tonight on the show, we have real estate and dispute resolution attorney Jack LaPedis talking about his practice, his business, and the differences between state and federal court. Additionally, we have Daniel Brin calling in from the front lines talking about the homeless, and the madman across the water, John Scalia from Munich, Germany. And now, here's the show.
Stand by SOT1.
Standing.
10 seconds. Ready, rollin'. Ready, SOT1.
Ready.
In 4, 3, 2, 1. Roll in.
From the roundtable at legendary Uncle's Studios, welcome to another edition of Work Comp Matters, the central location for you employers, you employees, and of course we haven't forgotten about you damn independent contractors. My name is Steve Appel, and I'll be your host for the next hour with some talk, news, and hopefully some answers about Work Comp Matters. Thanks for being part of the show, and if you can break away from your Work Comp Matters, feel free to give us a call and clue us in with your questions, comments, and or concerns. The phone number worldwide, 818-357-4120. You can send me an email to wcexaminer@aol.com. Heck, you can be old school. Send me a fax, 818-475-1437. With me in studio, my right-hand man, Dr. Mike Zyma, my protege, attorney Robert Ozeron, guest on tonight's show, attorney Jack LaPedis. Scott Walton from Uncle's Studio is on the board. John Scalia back in Munich, Germany, and back at WorkComp Central. Making sure the whole thing goes right is Ms. Kristen Chavez. Well, good evening, everybody, and welcome to another edition of WorkComp Matters. Of course, we are brought to you by theworkcompcentral.com. If you want the number one location for workers' compensation in both California and around the United States, check out theworkcompcentral.com. They've got a free 7-day offer, no obligation. And if you want, you can pick up their services. I have them. You should too. It's only $1 a day. WorkComp Matters is also brought to you by A1 Law, number one computer management system, 818-357-4120. We've got a lot of new news, information, updates. We have a special guest on WorkComp Matters, attorney Jack LaPedis, and we're going to get to him in a moment. But the first news story of the day I've got to get to, it's regarding the homeless count. Thousands of volunteers will fan out with clipboards across the city, that's Los Angeles County, to get a snapshot of the county's sheltered and unsheltered homeless population. One of the largest in the country, that's Los Angeles County. The results normally get released in May or June and are used by government officials to determine funding priorities for housing and services, and by the public to assess how much progress has been made on stemming the tide of homelessness. With us right off the bat, he's a regular contributor to the show, is Mr. Daniel Brin, who is out there on the front lines, on the front street, counting the homeless. Daniel, take it away.
Hey, Steve. Last night, more than 50 volunteers assembled at Shepherd of the Valley Lutheran Church in West Hills to participate in the 2020 homeless count. Similar gatherings were taking place at the same time in other neighborhoods throughout the San Fernando Valley of Los Angeles. After watching a training video from the Los Angeles Homeless Services Authority, we were deployed in groups of 3 and 4 to drive through tracts in every part of West Hills to count homeless people and their dwellings. The results we tabulated will help ensure that proper amounts of funds for homeless services are allocated throughout the city. As was the case last year, my team was handed the most challenging assignment, covering West Hills' largest parks and wilderness areas, including Knapp Ranch Park, Bell Creek, and El Escorpion Park, as well as residential neighborhoods on the southern and western edges of the community. It was a long and exhausting assignment, took about 3 hours, that involved traipsing through dark baseball fields, climbing over rocks, and poking through dense growth with flashlights. He peered into culverts and creeks and under bridges, into dark corners of parking lots and through long alleyways. It was almost midnight when our team returned to our base, but tired as we were, we had an amazing time. I want to thank the West Hills Neighborhood Council's Homelessness Committee, including its chairs, Tom Booth, Olivia Natureman, and Aida Apkarians, and many other volunteers to make this annual effort a showcase of professionalism and caring that represents the best base of our community. And that's my report.
Daniel, I got to ask you a follow-up question or two. Did you or your people ever feel scared or afraid because you were doing that peeking and poking into areas that you would not normally go into?
I wasn't, but we were a team of people who from the neighborhood council who are really intimate with the area. We know this area very well, and I've done it before, and I wasn't frightened, and I don't think the other two guys on my team were either.
I got to thank you very much for your volunteer service. As you indicated, you have been part of the West Hills Council for so long. I know I live in Woodland Hills, which is right next to West Hills. Did you want to give any contact information on Work Comp Matters before we say goodbye and thank you for your service?
No, you can find information about the homeless count through the West Hills Neighborhood Council's website, westhillsnc.org, and their Facebook group as well.
And Mike has one question.
Daniel, do you think you got an accurate count? Do you think you got an accurate count, Daniel?
I think so. We really scoured the community, and most of the volunteers were taking more manageable chunks, easier chunks, and we covered the whole place with a grid. And West Hills is a largely residential community, so we weren't expecting to find a lot, but we do have our places where we found homeless people before, and we were sure to check all of those areas.
And Daniel, we have another question from our guest, attorney Jack LaPedis. Go, just speak right into the microphone.
Yeah, Daniel, did you find that any of the people you were finding were resistant to talking with you or giving you information?
Well, our job wasn't to talk with them or really to encounter them in any way. We were given instructions not to poke our heads in their tents or RVs or shine our lights on them. We mostly stayed in our cars. We had to get out in order to explore these parks, but mostly people stayed in their cars and made observations.
Daniel, thank you very much for your valuable service, and you take care.
All right, you too, all you guys. Take care. Bye.
And there goes Daniel Brin, president of the, I think it's West Hills Community Council, volunteering his and his people's time for the homeless count.
So they do the count every year, right?
They do the count every year. If I'm not mistaken, last year there were about 60,000 homeless in Los Angeles County. I believe the total is around 120,000 in California, which probably means you've got another 30 to 60,000 divided up between the Bay Area and San Diego. And we've been talking about the homeless on this show for years. This is a good time to introduce my guest. He is an attorney. He is specializing in real estate and business dispute resolution. I want to give a warm Work Comp Matters welcome to attorney Jack LaPedis. Thanks for coming on the show, bud.
Thank you. Thank you for having me here.
No, the pleasure is mine. Why don't you just take a moment and tell us what you do in a regular 40-hour a week in your office. I know you own your own law firm, but you're involved with real estate and business dispute resolution. Take a few minutes and go for it.
Sure. So I have a background in litigation. I've been an attorney for a little over 24 years, and most of that time I spent in the trenches, in litigation, in courthouses, state court, federal court, appellate court. And a couple years ago, I decided that my clients weren't being well served by what I had to do while working at larger firms. So I opened my own firm, and I focus on what some people would call pre-litigation matters. I call it disputes. It's when that first salvo has gone over the wall, that first letter. You have neighbor disputes. They're fighting over the property line, the fence, the tree. You have buyers and sellers who are in disputes over their contract. And I want to come in before the lawsuit gets filed and try and really calm everyone down, figure out what the real problem is, because sometimes the problem isn't what they're presenting. There's something underlying that issue, especially with neighbors, and then come up with a reasonable solution. And I don't tell my clients you're going to get $1 million unless they're entitled to $1 million. I want to come to a reasonable solution and get it done before you end up having to go to litigation.
It's almost like an arbitration service. Private.
Well, the difference is I'm not a neutral. I am on one side or the other. The thing is that because it's my own firm and I get to pick my own clients, I only pick the clients that I believe in. When you work at a big firm or you're assigned cases, if you're not a partner and you're just given whatever, you may or may not believe in your client's case, but it's your duty to represent them. I don't have that problem. I always pick the party that I believe in, who I think is in the right, and try and get them what they deserve. I do have matters that go to litigation. I have a number of cases that are in litigation. I'm actually going to court on Friday.
Which court? I mean, as far as state, federal, administrative, what?
Right now, all the cases that I have that are in litigation are in state court. Mm-hmm. I'm in discussions with an attorney about an appellate matter that he's working on that he might want to bring me in because I have experience there as well. Most of the real estate cases I handle are simply single-family homes, and so not a lot of that ends up in federal court. I also handle matters with regarding homeowners associations, not the day-to-day thing, the meetings and such, but really when the homeowners association and a homeowner are having a dispute. And in most of those cases, I'm representing the homeowner.
I got to ask you, differences between state and federal court, is it night and day?
It is a little bit, but it depends on what side you're on. Because if you grew up as a baby lawyer practicing in federal court, then state court looks like a foreign language. And if you started in state court, there's a big learning curve in federal court. The one thing I always hear from people who practice in federal court is that they like the way that the information is mandatory to be given over the other side, what we call discovery. Mm-hmm. Whereas in state court, you have to ask the right questions. Mm-hmm. Also in federal court, the judges don't put up with nearly as much as the state court judges.
Right. And what's this about using bluebacks or using a specific type font or a specific color? Is that an issue or no?
Well, the bluebacks aren't used anywhere anymore, as far as I recall. I remember those, and I remember.
Sorry, I'm a dinosaur. I know.
No, I remember using those, and I remember when they went out of style, and there were some judges who still required them, even though they really weren't allowed to. There was a great judge out in Burbank. This is a state court. Who he was a real stickler for the font size and the characters per inch, and his clerk would actually take out the ruler and measure. And in our firm at the time, we had two different fonts that we used, one for everyone else and one for this judge, because even though the font we used for everyone else was technically compliant, this judge didn't allow it.
Gotta ask you, what are the two types of fonts? I know we normally use Times New Roman. I don't know if Dr. Mike knows that.
Yes.
Yeah, so the two that are allowed and should be allowed is Times and Arial.
Yeah.
And at the time, my firm used Arial, which is a little smoother, not as many corners. And this judge, no matter what you did with Arial, it just wouldn't get past muster, and he would reject documents. And that was a big problem, because if you rejected a document and you filed it on the last day, you might end up losing your client's right for something. So we had to use Times at a certain font size, and the only one he approved was somewhat between, if I recall correctly, between 11 and 12 point.
Right.
It was really weird.
And when you're in state and federal court and filing a brief or a motion or whatnot, Tell me about either underlining or using italicized font and or bold font. Is that allowed, not allowed, what?
It is allowed to do any and all.
And should you?
I think that absolutely you should emphasize words that need to be emphasized. Now, when I was in law school, I bought a used book, and I got it, and I opened up to one of the pages, and the entire page was highlighted. Okay?
Really?
What does that tell?
It's a waste.
It's a waste.
Yes.
So you don't want to bold a whole page,
Right?
You know, you want to bold a couple words or maybe a sentence. And I like bold over underline and italicized. Though I have used both, and I've used all three on a particular word when it really called for it.
Let me ask you, you practice in federal courts and then you went on down, so to speak, to state courts. Did you get the feeling that the state courts were like the minor leagues?
No, I actually
Good question.
I actually started in state court. I apologize if I was confused. I started in state court, and
Only Dr. Mike was confused. No one else was confused.
And I was at one of the firms that I worked at a number of years ago, about 15 years ago. And the partner walks into my office and he says, "Have you ever practiced in federal court?" And at that point in my career, I was an absolute yes man. I said, sure. And so he gave me a federal case. I go to my secretary and I said to her, my executive assistant, and I said, you need to get me admitted into the federal court, which is basically just filing a form and paying a fee. And after that, I became the federal court expert at my firm. So every federal case that came across my desk. And so though I didn't ever end up trying a case in federal court during that time period, I handled a number of cases, number of appearances. Federal judges are no joke. And it is something that's something that I noticed the most difference.
Are they respectful to the litigants?
Well, yes, they are,
But
there's a lot of things I would say in state court. It also depends on the judge, because I've been in front of some disrespectful state judges and some very respectful state judges.
give me an example. Do they throw a file at you, or how are they disrespectful?
They're disrespectful in a verbal way only. You know, they'll say things to you. And
What's the worst thing a judge said to you in state court?
Oh, that's a good one. I think
Clearly no four-letter words, but
Right.
it was okay.
no. What happened was we were having a scheduling issue with a deposition, and we were before the judge talking about it, and the judge said, "Okay, here's what I'm going to order. You're all going to show up on Saturday morning at 8 a.m. at the court reporter's office, and that's when you're going to have the deposition." And that's somewhat disrespectful to the calendars and the lives of the attorneys. There's no reason for it to be at 8 a.m. I have done depositions on Saturdays, but that was just typical of this judge, that he would just make proclamations that were ridiculous.
Was that a state or federal judge?
That was a state judge. Federal judges are much more like that teacher that's not going to put up with your crap. Like the things that you can get away with in state court, I would never crack a joke to a judge in federal court. At least I haven't yet. I have seen other people do it, but in state court, every once in a while, if it's appropriate, I will say something that's intended to be funny. Federal judges, I haven't gotten comfortable enough with those judges yet to do something like that. I'm sure they have great senses of humor, but I'm not going to do that.
Will they sanction you at a moment's notice, federal judges?
I have not been in the courtroom when someone got sanctioned for their behavior in the courtroom. There's other things that you can do to get sanctioned, and I have seen that. For example, disobeying a court order regarding turning over documents and things like that. But I have not seen someone get sanctioned, for example, for trying to make a joke.
Did you hear during the impeachment, and I didn't want to really bring the Trump issue now, but did you hear Justice Roberts use the word pettifogging?
I did hear that. I
on
have
my
no idea
Facebook-
what that is.
Oh, okay, well, basically, it's being petty, and it's somewhat of a derogatory term used in addressing attorneys. But Judge Roberts, it was either early this morning or late last night, admonished both attorneys on the Democrats and the Republicans, or the senators and the House managers, for being pettifogging and I put on my Facebook, I would buy anybody a drink that used that word before today.
It sent me to the dictionary.
Anytime I can send Mike to the dictionary, I know it's a good day.
Because the etymology is rather bizarre.
Is it from a prior Chief Justice, Mike, or no?
Well, there was a case that Roberts was citing to 1905.
Yeah, I thought it was in the early 1900s, yeah.
There was a matter about taking out a federal judge, but petty fogging and pettifoggery, as usual. There's two different morphemes. There's two different units of meaning. Petty is like small. You know,
we all know what petty means. Yeah.
But the fog aspect is from fugger, who apparently in the 1500s and 1600s were really wealthy people, the fugers. And somehow that got appended to, so I guess you're a small, penny-ante rich person.
Well, I think
like that.
I think
It's
what
bizarre.
Chief Justice Roberts meant, and he may have elaborated on this a little, was that this impeachment is not about the Senate. It's about President Trump. And the attorneys on both sides were being a little petty in their arguments. And so he brought up pettifogging. But that's enough about Trump, okay? The show is not about Trump. But you did bring up something which I find very interesting. And I want to bring in my protege, Attorney Robert Ozeron, because you talked about working for the man or working for another firm, being a yes man. My protege worked for other defense firms, or pardon me, other law firms for a couple of years, and then opened up his own shop. I know I have my own business. Mike and I work for another attorney. And there's an old saying, and I'm a huge believer in cliches. The great thing about owning your own business is you own your own business. The bad thing about owning your own business is you own your own business. Robert Ozeron, comments, questions, concerns about owning your own business. I just woke him up.
Just listening to you guys talk, yeah. I love owning my own business. I don't have to answer anybody except
Fair
for
enough.
all my
What are
clients
the
in
bad
court.
things about owning your own
The
business?
responsibility, of course. You have
course.
to juggle everything. The buck stops here type of a, issue. But at the same time, you could have freedom and things that you've never would otherwise experience working for someone else.
Jack,
You've had your own firm. I'm sorry, but
No, go
Robert,
ahead.
you've had your own firm for 5 years now, right?
You thereabouts, yeah, you can say.
Thereabouts. And
I've
it
had my
just-
own caseload for quite some time.
And it just keeps growing.
Yeah.
Oh, well,
Thankfully.
he's a marketing and advertising genius. Come on.
I don't know about all that, but you guys don't market and advertise at all. So
Very little.
So
very
in comparison,
little. Word of
yes,
mouth. Yes,
I'm a genius comparison-wise. But otherwise, no, I'm just a regular guy who would market.
Yeah. Jack LaPedis. Good points and bad points about owning your own business.
Also, I think I saw, Jack, your ad in The Advocate, right? Before? I think I've seen it.
If there's anything in the Advocate, I didn't put it there.
Oh,
Okay.
I thought I've seen
Sorry.
you at the seminars or things of that nature as well. I thought I've seen your ads.
Sorry to disappoint you.
I think I got a direct email from you, and that's how I contacted you. I think.
That would definitely be the possibility.
Yeah,
because
yeah.
I do have a couple email blasts that I send out. One goes to real estate agents, which are some of my major clients and referral sources, and I also send out to local attorneys as well.
Yeah. So good points and bad points about owning your own business.
Well, the best point is the whole reason, not the whole reason, but the straw that broke the camel's back as to why I left working for someone else and opened my own business was I missed my son's soccer playoff game because it just was not really allowed on an informal basis to leave the office.
You gave your sweat, blood, your tears, 60 to 80 hours of work for a corporate firm for years, and they wouldn't let you leave the office to see your son's game?
It wasn't so much they wouldn't let me. It was implied that it was not something that you were to do. And because it was a playoff game, it was like at 3:00, and when I realized that, I had a discussion with my wife, and it was decided that was it.
Dude, they wouldn't let you work from home?
As much as everyone loves FaceTime on their iPhone, there's a different kind of FaceTime that really kind of sucks the life out of an attorney.
Tell me about it.
What that is the partners will walk around.
Oh,
and
they're checking up on you.
And if they don't see your face, they want to know: does he have an appearance? Is he a
Fair
deposition?
enough.
Or is he just slacking off? Because if he's at home, he's slacking off.
I get it. Okay, let's transition. Let's talk about you as a boss. How many people do you have working for you?
Right now, it's me and my 2 labradoodles. It's
labradoodles.
That's right. I got we are.
So it's you, and only you.
It's me, and only me.
I was going to ask what your management style was, laissez-faire or micromanage, but obviously now I know.
I give them a good pet every once in a while. I have. I'm lucky in that I've met a lot of great people in the 20 some odd years I've been an attorney, and so my practice is focused not on litigation, but when I do get into litigation, sometimes I need a little support, and people let me, quote unquote, borrow their assistance to do some filings, to send out discovery and such. But mostly I do it all myself, and I like it that way. I'm dreading the day I have to hire my own employee, because that will change a lot of what goes on. I'm my own boss, and I have my own timetable.
Best idea, classify them as an independent contractor if you're legally allowed to do it.
Yeah, I'm thinking about what an assistant does for a lawyer. I don't know if that's possible at all.
That will give you a lot more free time.
That's true, but like I said, the way my firm is set up, because most of my cases are not in litigation. I'm not chained to my desk doing discovery or preparing for depositions or anything like that. There's a lot of just writing emails and letters and phone calls.
Sure.
Most of my cases deal with residential real estate, so I go out to my clients and meet at their home because the case is about their home, and I want to get a lay of the land, literally.
Do you charge them from door to door as far as travel and all that?
For the initial meeting, it kind of depends. I've kind of gone back and forth as far as what I do with billing for that. If they don't hire me, it doesn't cost anything. You know, that initial consultation
is completely free. At least for me, it is completely free. No obligation. But I make them come to me. I'm not going to do an initial consultation unless I think it's this monstrous case. They have to come to my office the first time.
I usually end up having a good 10 to 20 minute phone call with them before I say, why don't we meet? I've had plenty of conversations where I ended up saying, I don't think I'm the right attorney for you, or I don't think this is the right case. Or
that's what I say whenever family comes and asks me for my help. You know what? Your case is just way too complicated. I'm not good enough. Find someone else, damn it.
Yeah, I've represented my father-in-law, and it worked out fine.
It worked out okay.
Yes.
You guys are still friends.
Yes,
okay.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, when I go out and I meet with someone, and like I said, if they don't hire me, then I don't charge them. And what I've been doing is, if they do hire me, I'll charge them half the time that it took, just because it's sort of the beginning of the work that I did on the case, but it just sort of give them a jump start. Because, like I said, most of my clients are just homeowners, and it's expensive to hire a lawyer, and I try to keep my rates low. And one of the ways that I help them get started is by billing them half my normal hourly rate for that first hour.
What is the average rate for an attorney that does what you do? I'm not going to ask what you charge unless you want to tell us, but what is the rate for other attorneys in your area?
I believe what I've heard, I haven't done any market research or anything like that, but what I've heard is that it's upwards of $500 an hour. And that is pretty expensive. No matter how much money you have, that's still a lot of money, and there are those that are higher than that. If you go to a firm like where I used to work and you want a partner to work on a case,
that's got to be $800 an hour.
It can be. I mean, I remember 20 years ago there was an article in the California Lawyer where they were talking about the first lawyers got over $1,000 an hour, and we're talking 20 years ago. I mean, now it's got to be a regular occurrence that attorneys are over $1,000 an hour. That's a lot of money. And I try and keep my overhead low, and I try to not, bill the crap out of things and only bill what I need to do.
Right.
One of the things that I do with my clients is, they've lived this situation, whatever it is, much longer than I have.
It's emotional for them. It's it's personal.
Exactly. And they know the ins and outs of the situation. And so what I'll have them do sometimes, and it helps me and it helps them to save money, is I have them write the first letter, the first draft of the first letter with all the facts and what they want. And what they write is not going to be, a lawyer's letter. That's my job, is to take what they write and turn into the lawyer's letter.
Agreed.
But if I try writing that first draft, I'm going to have to read up on a bunch of stuff, and I'm going to, it's going to be wrong because I don't know.
And you got to charge for research.
And I got to charge for all that. So I let them do that first draft, and I found that you get a better letter. It costs them less money, and I think you end up with a better result.
I couldn't agree more. My name is Steve Appel. You're dialed in to Work Comp Matters. We are here with our special guest, attorney Jack LaPedis, who is a real estate and business dispute attorney. We are brought to you by WorkCompCentral.com. If you want the #1 location for workers' compensation in both California and around the United States, check out WorkCompCentral.com. They've got a free 7-day offer, and if you want to pick up their services, I have them. You should too. It's only $1 a day. Work Comp Matters is also brought to you by A1 Law, #1 computer management system, 818-357-4120. Well, he's a regular contributor to the show. He's a 45-year retired attorney. He's been a Democrat registered all his life while he was in the United States, but he moved out and he's hanging out in Munich, Germany, so he could live the socialist life that he's always wanted to live, even as a Democrat in the United States. With his regular segment on Work Comp Matters, Mr. John Scalia.
Hi, this is John, the madman across the water. This week on Trump Takes, we talk about Trump and Mar-a-Lago. He was down there recently for a gathering of Republican donors. And what did he do at the occasion? Well, he used it to entertain the troops. And what was he entertaining them with? Apparently a dramatic rendition of the assassination of General Soleimani. Now, this is pretty much the definition of being the class clown. If you have something to say about such a dramatic event, you probably should say it to the American people when you were the president. But instead, Trump used it as a vehicle for entertainment. The man still thinks he's on a TV show, and he still thinks the White House is a TV set, and he still has no business in either. This week, we deal with the impeachment and the view from here. Now, you all know I'm a socialist, and you all probably think you can predict what my views are on impeachment. Maybe not. Let me give you some history. First, as you all know, I'm about 105 years old. I point that out because Steve is always fond of pointing out my many years of experience practicing law. On the other hand, I'm probably the only member of the panel who has run multiple marathons, including one last year. So there. But since I am that old, I have lived through a number of almost impeachments and impeachments. I was old enough to remember when Richard Nixon was almost impeached. In fact, not only was I old enough, I was already a lawyer, and I was on my honeymoon in London when I read the paper about Ford pardoning Nixon. Then there was the Clinton impeachment. Now, this may surprise you. What will not surprise you is the fact that I voted for Clinton twice. But what may surprise you is that I was in favor of convicting him and during the impeachment. Why? Well, for the same reason that I'm in favor of convicting Trump. Clinton committed perjury under oath. He's a lawyer. That's a very serious offense for a lawyer. It's a very serious offense for anybody. Secondly, he used the power of his office, the inequality of the relationship between him and Monica Lewinsky to have sex. In today's climate, it was different back then, but in today's climate, any CEO who has sex with a subordinate in those circumstances would be replaced, open and shut. I'm always irritated when Clinton is referred to as a lawyer. He should always be referred to as a former lawyer. He was disbarred in Arkansas, and disbarment in Arkansas is capital punishment. You cannot reapply. Okay, on to Trump. Why am I in favor of impeaching Trump or convicting Trump? For the same reasons. Trump abused the power of his office by trying to use funds allocated by Congress as a weapon to get a political favor. He abused not only his office, but he was abusing the constitutional powers in the United States. The Republicans keep saying, well, we don't need to have more witnesses in the Senate. The Republicans keep saying the House has had all the witnesses. But that's because the people in the Senate don't seem to understand how the legal process works. What went on in the House was not a trial. It was more akin to a grand jury indictment. And the bill of indictment in the House is called the Articles of Impeachment. Yes, they have witnesses, just like a grand jury has witnesses. But there's no verdict. There's only a recommendation that the case go forward. And that's what happened. And if you listen carefully to when Supreme Court Justice Roberts was swearing in the U.S. Senate for their duties, you will note that the word specifically used in swearing in the senators was trial. That's right. The Senate is not dealing with an appeal from the House. There's no verdict. There's a trial going on in the Senate. It starts from scratch. New witnesses, new evidence, just like a bill of indictment from a grand jury. But there's so few lawyers in the Senate, and the ones who are there aren't very good. No one seems to understand that. So they're all saying, well, there's been enough witnesses. No, there haven't been enough witnesses. You can have as many witnesses as you want at a trial because that's what you're doing. You're not an appellate body. So it's clear to me that Trump should be convicted, and it's clear to me that the Senate should have additional witnesses. That's the view from this side of the pond this week.
And John, you madman across the water, you socialist, damn it, thank you very much. My name is Steve Appel. You're dialed into Work Comp Matters. We're brought to you by WorkCompCentral.com. If you want the #1 location for workers' compensation, both California and around the United States, check out WorkCompCentral.com. They've got a free 7-day offer. And if you want to pick up their services, I have them too. It's only $1 a day. Work Comp Matters is also brought to you by A1 Law, #1 computer management system, 818-357-4120. No strings attached, money back guarantee. $1 a day, A1 Law. I'm here with our special guest, attorney Jack LaPedis, specializing in real estate and business dispute. I would like to read a couple of stories, and then we'll close out the show with any questions for Jack or anything like that. Airbnb Inc. is laying the groundwork for a public market debut later this year, announcing the new corporate governance strategy that values safety, sustainability, diversity, and accountability. The home-sharing startup has said it will track guest safety incidents, verify all 7 million listings by December, measure its global carbon footprint, and enhance employee diversity. According to a statement on Friday, in order to achieve its ambitions, Airbnb is creating a new stakeholder committee on the board and tying staff bonuses to safety metrics. Robert, it sounds like they're just getting ready for their IPO. You're the business stock bonds. What do you think? Airbnb IPO, stock market? What do you think?
Yeah, it's highly anticipated for sure.
Would you buy it? Are you ready to buy it?
Personally?
Yes.
No. I think it's a little speculative. I don't know their cash.
I would say it's very speculative.
I just don't know their financial status. I mean,
Yeah.
I prefer a little bit more blue chip, older stocks like tech, but that's my personal preference if I was going to put my money in. But I do think there is some legal exposure for sure for Airbnb because
yeah.
I've always wondered you can, put all of these people together, distributing these rooms.
They
in
offer
one
like
house.
a free $1 million policy for their homeowners that rent it out. They offer a $1 million policy included, right?
I'm just thinking there's safety concerns when you're putting people together like that.
Sure.
But otherwise, I mean, I'll see how it goes. Everyone wants to see it IPO, though, this year. It should be this year.
He's my right-hand man. He keeps me in check and out of trouble, hopefully at least 90% of the time. With the next news story on Work Comp Matters, Dr. Mike Zyma, and he really is a doctor, just not a medical doctor.
Thank you, Steve. The number of fatal heroin and fentanyl overdoses in San Francisco more than doubled in 2019, according to preliminary statistics from the city's medical examiner's office that were obtained by the Chronicle. There were 234 deaths that are estimated to have involved fentanyl, compared with 90 in 2018. The number of deaths where heroin appears to have played a role reached 100 last year, officials with the city's chief medical examiner's office estimate. Now, Jack, I know you lived in the city up there. I got to ask you.
That's the Bay Area.
Yeah. Well, San Francisco.
Yeah.
Have you been back lately?
I go back typically once or twice a year. The rest of my family still lives in the Bay Area on the peninsula. And I have gone into the city, have been down Market Street.
Is it as bad as they say?
I was going to say, is it filthy? Is it disgusting? Is it dirty? What is the Bay Area like when you were there?
Well, I can't speak for the whole Bay Area, but I can tell you that the downtown area of San Francisco around Market Street is shocking. It is absolutely.
That right?
It is. You can smell it the moment you step off the BART train down in the station.
That's what I've heard.
And it only gets worse as you go up. And I'm sure there might be some areas that are nicer than that, but right there in downtown, it is atrocious.
And just a friendly reminder for those of you that love the Speaker of the House, Nancy Pelosi, that is her district, correct?
That's correct.
Go ahead.
And I remember what downtown was like when I was growing up. My grandfather had a shoe repair shop off of Market. I remember going down there as a kid, and
it was probably beautiful back then.
You would see a homeless person, maybe. It's really something else. And then also near City Hall, the last time I was in that area, which was a number of years ago, there's an area out in front where they have a bunch of trees and a fountain, and that was inundated with the homeless.
What about out west? Excuse me. What about out west? Out by the Seal Rock Inn, okay, and out by the Cliff House. Those places out there.
Right, and actually, the Cliff House is one of the favorite places that I went to growing up for my birthday dinner. I have been out there recently. I didn't see anything there. I did look from the Cliff House down to the beach to see, because sometimes you have that concentration down by Ocean Beach. I didn't see from my vantage point that there was a large population of homeless in that area. I didn't see anything in the Presidio, but that I just drove through there.
Okay.
But downtown was really, it was in the thick of it.
I'm born and raised in Southern California, and when I grew up, there were homeless occasionally on the beach. There were homeless in downtown L.A., but that was it.
Yeah, I worked downtown.
Now it's all over.
I worked downtown for a number of years, about 18, 20 years ago. And during the day, you'd walk around and there'd be regular people, other business people, and some homeless. And if you worked there on the weekends and you went to get lunch, you would see it was just the homeless. I was down there recently during the week, and it was just, you couldn't take 5 steps without running into one. I mean, it's real, and it's really sad. There's many causes of homelessness,
of course.
And I think it's been shown that a lot of it has to do with mental health. A lot of it has to do with drugs,
drug addiction, and then with women homeless, the majority, believe it or not, is violence.
Right.
It's violence in the family life, but with men, it's mostly mental illness and drugs.
Right. And it's sad to see, and it's unfortunate. It's become a political hot potato, and really, our leaders should be looking at solutions rather than trying to score points.
So it's like they say, downtown.
Downtown San Francisco is, from my perspective of what I saw, absolutely, and what my friends who I grew up with who still are there are saying on Facebook, they're seeing it every day.
We've got about 1 or 2 more news stories left, and then we got to go. Any of you guys own a Toyota?
I do.
In case you didn't know, Toyota Motor Corporation said yesterday it will recall about 3.5 million vehicles worldwide because of an electronic defect that can result in airbags not deploying in crashes. The recall, which includes almost 3 million United States vehicles, covers 2011 to 2019 Corollas, 2011 to 2013 Matrix, 2012 to 2018 Avalon, and 2013 to 2018 Avalon hybrid vehicles, and is tied to a report of one fatal crash. I want to thank my guest very much, Attorney Jack LaPedis, for coming on in.
Thank you for having me.
I hope you will join us again, and it's been a pleasure. Would you like to take a minute and give your contact information, phone number, email, whatever you want?
Sure. I can be reached at jack@lapedaslaw.com. That's LAPEDISLAW.com. My number is 818-308-4565. 818-308-4565.
May I ask Jack one very important question?
You may, and then we got to get the heck out of here.
I think I know what the question's going to be.
I don't.
Are the Niners going to win?
I knew it.
I'm picking the Niners.
Yeah. The reason why he asked the question is besides just growing up in the Bay Area, my family, going back to the 40s, were huge 49er fans, and we still are. And I'm very pleased that they're in the Super Bowl. The Chiefs are a very tough team, and I'm very hopeful. This team has played some very tough games and come out on top most of the time. And I think that the Niners are going to win. I think it's going to be probably less than a touchdown, and I'm going to be a nervous wreck.
Well, good luck to your guys.
Thank you.
All right, for Attorney Jack LaPedis. My right-hand man, Dr. Mike Zyma, my protege, Attorney Robert Ozeron, Scott Walton of Uncle Studio, the madman across the water, socialist, damn it, John Scalia, and all the good people back at WorkComp Central, including but not limited to Ms. Kristen Chavez. My name is Steve Appel. We'll see you again next week for another edition of WorkComp Matters.